Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started today. Thank you for coming, everybody. I'm Peter Juris from Boise State University. And we're going to talk about how we improve the support experience here at Boise State. A real quick overview of kind of what we're going to do today, and make sure that's counting for me so I don't go too long, is we're going to hit a little bit about me, kind of present why I actually know something and can do this presentation, and then where we were, where we did started from, and then kind of go to where we are today, and hopefully have enough time to present a little bit where we want to continue to get to with some high-level ideas. Or not. How about I click over here? There we go. How about that? So, I went too far? Oh, I did go too far. So I've been at Boise State for nearly 15 years. I think the most important information up there are the 4 letters. I'm an ESTJ, if you ever did the Myers-Briggs. So that means my world is very black and very white. The gray does not exist, and if you find yourself in the gray, you found yourself in the wrong spot in my world. If you want to learn a little bit more about me, you can actually go read a whole bunch more about me on LinkedIn and see more of my credentials. I won't go through those very long. And then these slides are all available up on the internet. Our short links URL at Boise State isn't that short. It's there at the bottom. If you want, you can give me your business card at the bottom. I'll email it out to you so you can get the slides. I think they'll also put my presentation up on there for that. But enough of that detail. Where we were is we were at a situation in that 5 to 7 years ago range where we were not a very, very helpful help desk. You know, we didn't help people do the things they really needed to at the university. It was a organization that was centered around the administration. So if you're a VP, you got great service. If you're a student, could you log in? There, you've got helped. So once you were logged in, you're off on your own. There was nothing else that we really did for you. You were kind of left hanging and swinging in the wind if you had a problem with, how do I do this in Blackboard? My computer doesn't connect to the wireless. We might touch a couple buttons, but then we give up and say you need to go talk to this other group or this, that. It really wasn't focused on the key mission of the university. It really was, we weren't in alignment. And probably you've all found yourself there in some state doing some things that weren't exactly that. And that limited scope of support. So if you were dealing with that, the enterprise system, so the PeopleSoft, the banner if you're at another school, whatever it is, you'd probably come to us for an answer. But if you were asking about something to deal with, how do I do something in a classroom, or how do I, that wasn't the organization that we really couldn't help with that. There weren't a lot of things that we could do. There wasn't a lot of engagement with the faculty. There wasn't a lot of engagement with the students, for that matter. And that's really where we started from. And we really wanted to provide more. The campus wanted more from us. And we're still working on trying to grow into it, but we're starting to get there. So a little bit about where we are today, and then I can talk about some of the details for that. We've kind of grown from a small department where there's 4 student employees and about 10 full-time people, to where the full-time people have roughly doubled, but we've gone to about 50 student employees, maybe 60 depending on the time of the year, and really 3 key teams that deal with stuff on campus. There's that Tier 1, that organization that talks to the people face-to-face all the time, every day, and there's lots of different ways for us to connect to it. We keep trying to introduce new ways to do that. We'll go over that a little bit more. Desktop support and engineering, so that traditional kind of Tier 2 model. The team that works there actually does do some time on the Tier 1 that helped us, really helps them to continue to stay connected to that community that we wouldn't interact with any other way. And that for us is kind of a key aspect for our full-time people, is we have to make sure they stay connected and they understand the issues. And then when we are working on building something or doing that engineering portion, we really have a better scope for how those actions and what we do affect the community. And the last one, we've really got in there and moved down the road of supporting over 100 classrooms. It was back 7 years ago, we didn't support any classrooms. That was another organization on campus, wasn't that? and we've moved to supporting 100 classrooms and about 500 total computers that make up labs, classrooms, and kiosks just around campus. They've all got the same exact software on them, with the minor exceptions when faculty ask us for really expensive stuff that we can't put everywhere. And then it's kind of universal. So a student could be in class, be shown how to use SPSS. They could walk up to a kiosk outside the classroom and continue to start using that, start working on their homework immediately. Really some of those key things of the things that we've been able to add to the environment, because there's a consistency. What I've shown in class, I can walk out to the computer outside the class and start doing. And we've continued doing the traditional stuff, the phone and email, but we added a drop-in zone, is what we call them, places where you can walk in and say, hey, my computer doesn't work. And my computer doesn't work means I may not be able to get on the wireless network. I'm doing something funny. Or I got crypto locker, what do I do now? And we're going to help you with it, and we're going to take the steps that you need to get the malware off your computer. We're going to reload this OS. We're going to do whatever we need to really help that student, faculty, or staff with their personal device to get it back up and working so they can do the job that they were there to do, to learn, to teach, to really succeed at fulfilling that mission of the university. And along with that, the only limit we've drawn is we've decided that we aren't going to turn these screws. So if it's really physically broken, it's got something wrong in it, we're going to refer you off to the local people in town that can turn the screws and would do that for you. Worst case, we might say go visit the Geek Squad, but that's going to be our last recommendation. There's quite a few good places in Boise that people can go visit for that. Also, we've moved in that time frame from being a kind of a service consumer to a service provider to the IT community on campus. We manage and use Microsoft System Center, and we provide that as a service to all of the decentralized IT organizations on campus so they can leverage that and be able to use the same things that we do to automate and provide that so they don't have to, one, recreate the wheel, two, know the system inside and out. That's where we provide that third tier kind of reference of how do we get Java installed on all the computers, because it seems like we have to update Java every other day, and do some of those things. That's what we're here to reference for, and that's really where we've come today, to be that partner on campus to really try and succeed and help the other people that are helping people educate and learn be successful at doing their jobs too. A quick insight into our current kind of call volumes and details. There's a lot of detail here. Each one is a different type of call. We see an increasing growth, kind of month over month. Generally, we didn't have all of July when I ran the numbers, but we can see year over year growth continual. And the interesting thing here is, I talked about adding new channels of support. You can see in the beginning of 2013, we added chat support. Chat support, it became an instant 1% of our call volume. It stayed 1%, but nothing else was reduced by 1%. So we ended up adding a new channel. We had more calls coming in, but we didn't see a reduction in the other channel. We just ended up reaching people that wouldn't come to us any other way. So it really is about trying to add those channels and do those things that really help engage the community. It did help us pull in people that weren't doing that. There's a couple of people on campus that we know that's their favorite way to talk with people. They would prefer to chat with you instead of pick up the phone, write an email. That is their way. And those are the people that we know do it consistently. And then there's people that just kind of come in, drop in. It's an easy way to connect to us. It also corresponded very nicely with our unified web experience, or portal, for lack of a better word. We don't. We have it so it matches the hours the help desk or service desk is open. We do have online learning, and the group that was there, we keep talking with them. What do you want? Help us be able to fund this. We can do some of it. We can't cover all the costs to expand those hours to really do that. And the reality is, some of it is for us looking at adding weekend hours before we do 24/7 hours, and putting some weekend hours in there to accomplish that. The biggest trick is making sure that we've worked with the organization so they know this is what we're providing for you to address what we see as your needs to support those students so they can be successful. And management's still in discussion on those. That isn't one that I can say, yes, we can go do it.
You have online learning, but you don't have business support.
That is correct today. Hey, I'm just the lowly desktop support manager, not the director with this. So there's all kinds of cool things that we could do. It's just some of it comes down to funding, and some of it comes down to people wanting it and agreeing that yes, that's a good thing to do. And, you know, such is life. So I've talked a lot about kind of what we did and what we changed. I want to talk about how we got to where we are today. First and foremost, it was a ton of change. There was a lot of things to grow from that organization that kind of said no to one that really did say yes and helped people. The first and biggest one is we had a lot of learning with how to deal with change and change management as an organization. The best example I can come up with that is with the help desk. We set up a help desk manager. We said that they're going to run that, and we shifted it from being mostly full-time staffed with a few students filling in the gaps to being mostly students with full-timers filling in the gaps. So kind of flip-flopped the way we looked at it for staffing. The only way we could really afford to add enough hours to cover that. And the biggest learning curve that we had there with that is we oversold what we thought the help desk manager could do. For dealing with, adding 20 students, maybe 30 students that he had to manage, in addition to making sure they were trained, they knew what to do, they had supervision when they needed supervision, all those details. It was more than one individual could do. The impact was that fell onto sometimes on the full-timers getting questions for the staff that weren't in management positions because they were handy. And that really did impact morale and understanding. And that really came down to how we as the management team presented it of this is where we're going, this is what we think the person can do. And we grossly underestimated the amount of work that came along with some of the aspects of it. And that really did impact us. So that was, in my opinion, a poorly managed change. So really understanding what your change is, how it can impact the people, and then really communicating that with the example. Again with that, as a result of that, we've had to then do more change with more people in positions to help support the help desk manager with some assistant managers to really fill in the gaps there and provide the organization so it really is operationally successful and deal with that. And that really does take its toll on people. So that in my experience is really the hardest part of this whole shoot match is being able to manage that, figure out what you want to do, present it to the people and do that. Doing the actual support isn't a big deal. We can train students, we can find students that are capable, actually can talk to a person, and then we can teach them the technology. That's generally pretty easy. The hard part is dealing with the change and keeping that forward, going with that. We've added additional services, we do new things. A good example is after getting this going, we had a rollout of that portal I introduced before that came up with the chat support. And there's just continual new things that keep coming out in addition to that. We don't necessarily get asked to do less, we keep getting asked to support more. And that's the consistent question. And we've been able to do it without necessarily growing. We do have a minor student army because we have a cheap labor pool. But that's the benefit of being a university. The cheap benefit of that is being able to continue to grow and meet the university's needs with able to add additional people, additional phone lines, additional ways to contact us and keep moving forward and supporting the mission of the university. We have had to work at being the squeaky wheel to make sure that we get the information before something hits the customers. So we actually know what to do, we have the information, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And the technology, we'll get down to that in a couple slides about some of the technology choices that we made as a university in that 5 to 7 years ago range that really did impact our ability to move forward and offer some of these options. A couple obvious ones are Google Apps. Google Apps changed the way we look at email, how easy it is to connect to. Google made it really easy for us to support any device. You walk up, yeah, we can do that. Some of the most odd devices is like a Nook. We have people, how do I get me an email on a Nook? I don't know, let's figure it out. So, with what's been going on here, we talked a lot about change. We also wanted to focus on the change, continue to create consistent, repeatable process. So this is something that we looked at. We had a solid idea of incident management as an organization. We knew how to take a call from somebody, say it's broke, and get it to the right person to fix it if the help desk couldn't fix it. That one we knew, we generally had, but we had to continue to, as an organization, grow and improve in other areas. A good one is in service management is working on continuing to get all of the IT organization to understand what service requests are and how they're different from an incident and why they would maybe have a different speed or urgency to them, or how we would need to look at managing knowledge management and continuing to focus on making sure that knowledge management was something that we do and part of our process, and people actually contribute to our knowledge base and create articles and do things that are meaningful and don't just copy and paste from Google, and create things that are meaningful for our organization. A good example of looking at the world a little differently with technology delivery in the process is we flipped for the office imaging using Configuration Manager. The imaging process kind of on its head for our ability to adjust and deal with the campus's demands. Traditionally, if you're looking at desktop support, you would make a giant image that had a single file monolithic that created and had all the software that you had it on XYZ date. 6 months, 8 months, a year later, you're still using the same thing, and who knows how much stuff has changed under the hood along that time. Well, we flipped that on the head with a thin imaging methodology with ConfigMan that allows us to basically, it's like you're sitting in front of the computer and popping the disks in, downloading the software and installing it, just one step right after the other. The penalty is it takes a little longer for the computer to get imaged, but we end up with a consistent result. My key example that goes along with this is you ask me to update the monolithic thick image. I would say it takes 2 weeks, bare minimum, to make sure that we get everything right. We test it and we verify it. We actually get it and we make sure that it rolls out and we don't cause ourselves more calls than we actually fix by updating it. By switching this on its head, we can say, oh, Java needs to get updated. We can switch out Java. The next computer gets imaged. We can verify that it goes correctly, and we can turn that around from weeks to hours or days, depending on what that is. And for us, that has really impacted our ability to continue to keep up with campus and change that and really reduce the number of things that we need to continue to customize and keep, oh, we need the little image for this one over here or that one over here. Well, we can customize the task sequence and we can do that, and it's not any different than any other Office computer except for it gets extra package over here installed. And it's really a dynamic improvement for our organization and how we've looked at the world and improved that. Yeah. That's System Center Configuration Manager. We're on 2012 R2. So. We've also had to realize that we can't be the eyedropper dropping the drop of water in the bucket. If we're looking at the issues or the things that we like, and typically those are things that we're passionate about, but they may not be the things that actually have the big impact that we're looking for. And my best example of learning how that is we said we need to have knowledge-based articles. Okay. The staff looked at us and went, okay. So we added a process around it. Staff still looked at us and said, why is that important? We're doing that. And we started focusing on, well, what are the top calls for the help desk? Here's the knowledge that we need to support those, and chunking through and helping the staff get those. We also then added on, as new things come up, what are the knowledge-based articles to support those new services that are rolling out? So we have those with day and date of rollout, if not before, so the staff can be familiar with them and actually look at them. And we've finally switched after a year of plotting through and trying to figure out what those are and make that transition and talk to the staff. with knowledge management, been able to make the shift where the organization is starting to see we have a knowledge base and it's got value in it. There's an actual a turn starting to happen, but it's been an entire year worth of work and direct and consistent messaging from myself and other managers to talk about that, and with it, it's been a lot of work. So that's what I'm talking about with picking the issues that are the big creators, the ones that have the impact. And sometimes they're not the easy thing. It's not the quick fix. It's not that, and it's going to vary from organization to organization. I could go into other examples with us looking at that. A good one is looking at how we support Blackboard and consistently making sure that we've got the right details and the right information. We continue to work with the group that does the Blackboard course administration, the administrator, to make sure that the help desk has the current training at the beginning of each year, because it seems like Blackboard changes every, something changes. The button moves somewhere, something crazy. I've been kind of lucky that I'm a little bit out of the loop, so don't ask me to support Blackboard. I have to go search the knowledge base. But I know the information's there. So when I do have to do that, and I was stuck in a situation covering while they're off doing some training, I got the call from an associate dean that said, "How do I do this?" I'm like, "I don't know, let me look." I found it. I was able to answer the question and used it. So it does work. I'm living proof for that. Yeah. Keeping knowledge base information up to date is a big deal. We had a transition when we moved to from another product to Microsoft System Center Service Manager for call tracking, and we just kind of spewed all our other knowledge into that knowledge base and realized that was probably the wrong choice. So what we do now is we keep, there's a way that people can flag incidents that they need a knowledge base article. People can rate knowledge base articles as that was helpful or not, and then we can kind of go through and do audits as we have time. So we continually keep the full-timers having a queue of, we need these knowledge base articles up to date. And that's kind of the process that we've done. And that's as kind of a management team, we kind of keep track of that and going through, these have been flagged as they aren't accurate, or these have got comments where they're negatively impacted. And it's taken a lot of time and effort to get there. And we really have been focusing on that 80% that's that most frequent for the call. There's still a lot of cruft in there that we're having to sort through and really look at kind of getting rid of, so we can get the good quality articles in there and make sure that it is a big deal. It's taking a lot of effort. That's why it is that big creator kind of issue, because you have to work on it and it takes a long time. And a lot of staff go, ugh, I have to write another knowledge base article? And the answer is yes. But for my next slide, we'll kind of go on to why that's important. Actually, in one more, we'll get to that. So there was one attitude on campus that we had to overcome, and that was really, if we go back, if it was Windows, we'd help you. There was a Mac guy, so call the Mac guy. And then if the Mac guy wasn't available, you're kind of, we'll give it a try for that. And we've had to really switch towards the staff's culture and the campus. We've had to really work on building up the trust on campus that we are the organization that you can come ask us a question. We may not be an expert on the Nook, but we'll look and help you, try and help you with it. But we have on the common platforms really worked at trying to build up our knowledge, making sure that the staff know this is what we support, trying to give them the typical IT mentality is just let me play with it and I'll figure it out. So we've given them the stuff to play with it and try and figure it out and really work at becoming the experts and doing that. Part of the practice is then continuing to get somebody to have some knowledge and then share it with the rest of the staff in kind of a informal style trainings that we have with the full-time staff, that then we can continue to propagate that knowledge further and further out. It may get more diluted because it's not with the expert, but it is where we've continued to share it. And this, I would say, was probably one of our, in addition to the change, one of the biggest cultural issues to overcome with getting the campus to say that we're a trusted resource in addition to the staff to be confident walking in there. And it is it really did take some time to get the right set of full-time staff in there with the attitude that I could walk up to anything and figure it out. They may not know right off, but they're going to research it, they're going to find it, and they're going to fix it. I have no doubt in the staff that work for me on that now. There are a couple people that have been able to move on to other jobs on campus that had that fear. If I don't know it at an expert level, I can't fix it. I don't have to walk in that in our environment with such a diverse support isn't an attitude that we that's going to be successful. It's going to continue to be stressful and do that. And it was really a lot of work to really help work with that person and say that I know that you have the knowledge here. It was just an internal fear in working with that. So there's a lot of people things that go along with this kind of culture stuff too. And then for us, making sure that our tools look at that. I'm working towards, I don't know if you guys saw the Jam booth, but we've looked at that. We really want to buy it. We just haven't had time or staff. The money, I've got the money. I have the money from my boss. I don't have staff to actually click the buttons on the stupid software. That happened because a couple people took other jobs, and so I'm having to fill the gaps in. But hopefully this fall, I'll be able to do that. My goal is that I treat a Mac, a Windows PC, exactly the same. It's a managed device, it's a managed device. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be, again, another culture thing for those people that have typically been very independent with their computer with that, but it is something that as we continue to get more and more repeatable, we continue to be asked more. That's what we have to do. And by raising that service level, being able to provide something that they weren't able to do and being able to do it faster, we should be able to sell that to campus. But the trick is, it is a big change to go along with it.
Do you find it hard with Mac users? Or because you don't have to do anything with Mac, tell them to update those guys every day.
So
You have your own apps that you like.
we've had, I would say that some of our Mac users were more of the frequent flyers than you would actually be surprised with. We've had people that were, the way they chose to do their work, they caused themselves more problems than you could ever imagine. It was amazing. The students can bring in whatever they want for that. If you look at our numbers, we're probably in the 30 to 40% Mac, and if you throw in the iOS devices, it probably brings it up over 50, and that's going to using the wireless network numbers for that. So there are quite a few on campus. That is very common. Those would be an unmanaged device in our environment. That definitely, but you know, the office computer, all the lab computers, we want them all to be the same for that aspect. So I alluded to it before with the knowledge management and keeping that in there. You have to keep score, and this is something that I've worked really hard to integrate into our culture and deliver to the staff. Is as an organization, we have to be able to tell you how you're doing on a regular basis. So this is one of the team metrics. It says a lot. You know, there are things in our environment that drive our resolution time up, how the tool counts time, a few of those other things that may be higher than what you would see on some of the HCI standards. But the key here is this is only the presentation layer. What I did is I took disparate sources because the survey data was not with the incident data, which was not with the activity data. I put them all in a Google spreadsheet because I love Google, a little Google app script, and it sends the person an email with their scores. And it made what would be, you know, a day-long process to compile that, write emails, and send everybody their information. I can compile all the information and deliver their scorecards in about an hour after getting that. And really, that was my innovation on this, and really adding that in there. And talking about this is why keeping scores important is actually on the next slide. Because you see, after we started talking about this, we see a consistent focus that I started adding to the average resolution time, really the fall of last year. I started focusing on it, and guess what happened in March and April? I stopped focusing on it, and look what happened. Keeping score. So it's a good example of where I focus, the staff continue to focus, and that. So if it's something that we want to make sure we consistently stay on top of, to continue that. It got busy with somebody from the engineering team for the desktops resigning and trying to figure out how we were going to deal with the summer and allocate stuff. That kind of shot the whole idea in the foot with the number of things to do. But it's a key idea. If you can continue to focus on something, most likely the staff's going to produce, and they're going to give you the results that you want. And you know, you don't have to be somebody that cracks the whip. You just have to share with, this is where we are today. And there's a few people that love it because they love to play games. They compete against themselves. Some people just like to kind of know where they are, and it helps keep them on focus. A good example where keeping score actually helped an individual that was an underperformer move from an underperforming to being an average performer on the team, being understanding kind of what was expected, having that information in front of him really did solve what was kind of a difficult management situation just by working with him and having him understand what were the expectations. Yeah. So I work at a state institution, so you know, it's whatever the state legislature happens to give us. The end all is this does impact their evaluations. It is just one category on them, so it isn't their entire evaluation, but it is something that does play into it. The year-long numbers, we can see what their trends were, if they were meeting kind of the average of the team, if they were overperforming or underperforming, and talk about that. I did have an underperformer where things were just way out of whack, and we were able to bring them back into that. So, and it was about them understanding what the expectations were. It is really what it came down to is no matter how I conveyed it, it took actual physical numbers and a few details in front of them to really kind of make that change. It was just how that individual worked, and you know, in my case, I was happy because that didn't lead me down any other roads, but that was, in my opinion, a good success. But we have to continue to keep score and deal with that. This one isn't about keeping score as much as, you know, we've gone through a lot of change, and I feel fairly satisfied. I didn't get all of 2014 numbers up to date on here, but if we look at it, we've gone through a ton of change in 5 years and a lot of details, and we've done it with a relatively solid average on overall customer satisfaction. And for me, that means we've been able to do things, we've been able to continue to improve and provide the details that we needed to for the university without doing things that really negatively impacted our ability to do it. With a lot of change that can be negative on people, we did have some of that, but we were able to continue to deal with it and continue to provide a solid service to the campus, even though we were struggling a bit internally. With that. So that I think was you know, a solid success metric for us on how we've done. So I alluded a little bit to this in the past, is we did a lot of things with technology choices to this. Google Apps, I'm sure a whole bunch of you are either Google Apps or you're going to Office 365, one of the two. If you're still running your stuff on campus for email, you're probably crazy. That on a side note is my other duties as assigned is I'm the Google Apps administrator for campus, in addition to doing all the desktop support stuff. So I love Google, but it allowed us to move from, we were supporting GroupWise and NetMail, and we could, you know, 2007 the iPhone came out, the president would get one. We went and spent $60,000 to get the software to allow us to connect it to GroupWise properly. Just to keep the president happy, let alone trying to get everybody else on there. So it's a good example of what the university struggled with, is just keeping up and supporting the people and providing that service to everybody. By moving to somebody like Google or others that have that platform and provide that ability to connect any device anywhere, anytime, really did provide us the ability to say, you can walk in with your iPhone, I can walk in with my Android phone, I can walk in with my, you know, the new Amazon Fire phone, I can get my email on there. I may not be able to use the Gmail app, but I can get my email on there and be able to say, yes, I can support that. So that there's things like that. So it's one of those that as the support organization, you have to be willing, as things be able to be supported, you have to say, yes, we can do that, and adventure into that untreaded water for the organization, for being able to grab onto, yeah, we can support any device. It doesn't matter what it is. The only hard line that we tried to draw, again with a couple minor cases, is that if you're using Gmail, you do it in a web browser. And if you're using a client we'll kind of look at it and try and help you. But if you're having a problem, let's help you make sure it's working on the web browser, and then we'll do that. Because we know it's universal. It works on anything. The web browser, it just works. We don't have to worry about any client nuances or any details that we've put along with that. Desktop automation is huge for me, being the desktop guy. I never want to have my team leave their desks if I can help it. We want to make sure the routine is automated. A good example of how we've automated the routine is application patching. We've all probably done Windows patching, and which included Office because of WSIS. But how do you deal with Java? How do you deal with Adobe Reader? How do you deal with PDF Creator? GoToMeeting for that matter, keeping it up to date and all those details that people may use on campus. And doing that, we actually elected to use a piece of software called Ninite to go along with that. If anybody's heard of it, it works really well. It's done what we needed to. It's one of those things that I've essentially put at a set it and forget it kind of state, and it just goes through patching campus. And we've only had one issue where it rebooted a computer that we weren't expecting, and that was with Java 64-bit, and I contacted the company and said, we'll fix that, and they did. So, what was that? Ninite, N-I-N-I-T-E. So, it's pretty good software and pretty good deal. It worked well for us, but it's kind of working at how do we automate that routine, make it sure that we don't continually get that flow of calls from information security services. This software is vulnerable on this computer on the secure network. We got tired of those. We didn't want to deal with those anymore. In addition to it, then it provides a more secure platform for people to compute. They're less likely, they still fall for malware and other stuff, but they're less likely to get it because their software is actually up to date with that. So that's actually helped quite a bit with details. And a good example of using the full feature set of, since we use Configuration Manager, you have to look at what tool you have and what it can provide. My example is it has like desired configuration management is how Microsoft terms it, is it can say this is the state that you want it to be in with this software. We've used a really limited case so far. The Information Security Services has asked us to roll out BitLocker encryption and on laptop devices, and we use it to monitor those. So when they check in, if config-man detects that BitLocker's off, it creates an incident for us to go fix it. No brains, we don't have to go through and audit it, it just tells us when something's out of whack. Great thing, it's continuing to tell us, give us that, and we need to continue to look at how we can do that. We're using that in some of those same features in our lab images to make sure that the right icons are on the desktop that they're expecting, that the details. It's about getting in there, and the desktop support person probably knows how to deploy an image and deploy software, but do they know the rest of the package that goes along with it? Because there's probably a lot of features that you aren't using that really start adding value and really make it so that you add that next layer of automation on top. You know, we look at managed and unmanaged devices. You have to be able to support both. You need a good remote control tool. That's how we did chat support, is via our BombGuard remote control appliance. We love BombGuard. The key with BombGuard is that it's an appliance that's on our campus. I'm actually talking to Information Security Services when I get back about using it for vendor management, getting them access into servers because it records sessions and takes care of stuff. So there's a lot of things that it can do. For us, it's about extending, again, using the full feature set and doing that. The best example, we got BombGuard about 7 years ago. Shortly after we got it installed. Our VP of Finance Administration was in, I think, O'Hare Airport and had a problem. It was our very first remote control session was with our VP. We fixed her issue in the airport. I guess production remote control session at the time of her call because we had the tool. That one call, in our opinion, almost paid for the service in itself, just because of that. And we've continued to go down that. The things that we're looking at for improving with BombGuard is it's chat support and has ability to transfer sessions. Is how do we make that more seamless between tier 1 and that tier 2 to get them that call that we've already got them captured. We've got them, hostage, for lack of a better way of putting it, in the call. They want to get it fixed. The help desk can't fix them at that point. How do we get that to a person that can take the time to fix it or start working on it at that point of contact? Because our single biggest issue is once somebody gets off the phone, is getting back a hold of them or off that session. And that's the biggest delay for us.
Is that with just faculty and full-time staff, or is it also with students?
We can use it with students because it's the appliance is on the public ISP space for Boise State, so it's accessible anywhere. I could start chatting with them now and do that. So it's available anywhere worldwide, assuming China's firewall doesn't block it. So it's one of those that's a great appliance. It does a whole bunch of things, and we love it. That for us has been one of those key tools that has enabled us to really work at supporting anything, anywhere, anytime kind of idea that it just doesn't matter what it is, and be able to say, yes, yeah, we can help you with that. Some of the support options on an iPad are a little funny because you can't necessarily see what the user's doing, and that's because of the restrictions of iOS. It's not because of what Baumgar can do, it's about how iOS works than that. So you can chat with people, but it's not necessarily easy for them to see what's going through with the customer. So there are limitations, but they're definitely getting better over time and seeing improvements. Yeah. Yeah. That's how I would say that's almost the first thing the help desk agent sets up is, let me remote control your computer. You sit in the call center, that's almost the first thing they do to help almost anybody. They listen to the issue, they get an idea. Almost consistently, their next step is that, unless it's something they've gone through and they know what the answer is right off the bat. Or there's maybe a solid knowledge base article that says you go here and fix it. It's used for anybody, faculty, staff, students, anytime the help desk is open. And it's a huge time saver because if you can look at the issue, you can communicate with the customer that may not be able to tell you what's going on there. Because they may be a psychology professor and they use the computer to write APA styling, but they may not know where the start button is. So it's one of those that you have to be able to, again, talk them through getting the session started, but once they're there, it makes it a lot easier, and you can start, it changes how the agent can interact with them dramatically. Yeah? Does that require an agent installed? It doesn't require an agent. It is an executable that you download at the time the remote session starts. You can deploy it where there's an agent local and it's just set up and ready to go. We've only done that on a handful of computers that were off at the Mountain Home Air Force Base, which is like an hour and a half away from campus. So we've got those set up so we can actually remote control them if they call in about that stuff. But the rest of it it's set up with an on-demand kind of setup. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you experimented with the remote desktop feature?
Let's see, wake up. The answer there is, I love remote desktop in Chrome because I use it on my Chromebook that I'm doing my presentation on. So that's how I connect to my computer from wherever I am, but I haven't looked at that. If you look at our Google Plus numbers and people that actually have profiles set up to where some of that stuff would work and really start working at how that would integrate into that, there's just not enough adoption on campus to really drive that. That's what it is. When you have 120,000 accounts and you can say that there's about 2,000 students using Google Plus, then you're like, eh. So. And it's not dependent on Google Plus, but it is one of those things that we can't guarantee they're going to use Chrome. They're going to call us using Safari or whatever else, and It's one of those that would add just another step in there. The bomb guard short circuits that. Okay, so that's enough about technology uses. Where do we want to be? And that will kind of finish us up here. Is we want to continue to work towards being that university help desk of distinction. We've kind of took the term help desk to represent the organization, even though we've been branded the OIT customer care because we care about our customers. Is the monocle that we've been down there. But we want to continue working towards being that trusted resource. We want to create services and support that are really hard to duplicate, that we're efficient, that we're productive at it, that we stand out in that crowd of people that say, yeah, we can do your job. We want to differentiate, and we've continued to work at trying to become part of that solution, and part of the being part of the team is that project process. They keep introducing new stuff. We keep squeaking about getting information before stuff rolls out. That has really actually worked. And the last couple of rollouts, well, they haven't been perfectly smooth. We've had the information ahead of time on how to deal with them and how to deal with some of the issues and the knowledge and provide that stuff. So that for us has been a key to be part of the team and part of the project team within IT, let alone that campus community kind of detail. For you, I'm sure you guys can get the slides. If not, you can come up and I can give you my business card. You can email me. I can get yours. I can email you with that. But there's a whole bunch of resources that we've put out there. We've talked about some of the stuff we've done over time. Some of these are my colleagues that have written that. The last one, because we have 250,000 accounts in our Active Directory, looking up an account in Active Directory is kind of a pain in the behind to see the details. I wrote a PowerShell tool to help make that easier for the help desk. So there's a lot of things that we have done to help provide that information at the beginning of support to really enable the help desk to see, should you have access to our portal? I don't know. Well, they can tell, and they can tell what kind of access they should have and what details there, because we've worked at exposing it to them in a way that's easy to use. And that, I think, is that, again, layering that automation, continuing to put those layers on top has been where we've worked at continuing to succeed, and enabling the people taking those phone calls and documenting the issues to capture the right information, to have the right information at their fingertips and do that. And Liz worked with me before. She encouraged me to submit this, so hopefully I didn't bore too many of you guys with this. But if there's any other questions, otherwise I am almost out of time. Yep. Yes? So we have, over the years, hired a few students to be full-timers. So that's something that we have done. There isn't necessarily a career path for the student employees, but we are actually working that as an overall IT organization to provide that. What does that mean? And that's actually something I've been charged with doing, and I'm a bit behind on by doing that. But hopefully, tomorrow on the plane ride home, that gives me something to do, is kind of my goal. On the plane ride here, I finished up the last little details on this bad boy. Plane ride home, I'll finish up the details on that. So on a Chromebook, works offline. I swear, they're the coolest things. This one, if you want to come look at it, has a 1080p screen. It's awesome. So, thank you.